What's up, football fans? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. Talking about Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Sports Talk. That's right, that's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we hope that you support Behind the Bench, become a subscriber, help make this show the best that it can be. And with your support, we have now earned over 2,000 subscribers. And it has really happened fast. Before you knew it, we went from like a couple hundred to 500 to 750. And we reached 1,000 by the beginning of the year. And now we have surpassed 2,000 subscribers. So, hey, we really appreciate it, and that means we're doing something right at the end of the day. Now, I want to talk some football, NFL, and as we know, the Kansas City Chiefs overcame a halftime deficit, and as they say, they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. Or in the case of the team who lost, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And the Chiefs won their third Super Bowl in 4 years? Back-to-back champions for the first time in 20 seasons. And the final score was like, let's see, 29-22, if I'm not mistaken, 28-22, something to that effect. But nonetheless, Kansas City or your back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Check this out. Just like that, here we go with the GOAT talk. And you know what's crazy about it? You know what's funny? You know who also won back-to-back Super Bowls? Troy Aikman. You know who also won 3 Super Bowls in 4 seasons? The Dallas Cowboys. Troy Aikman, in 3 Super Bowl appearances, threw a grand total of 1 interception. He played at an elite level. But after winning his 3rd Super Bowl, I don't recall pundits saying that Aikman is on his way to becoming the GOAT. Now, me personally, I believe Troy Aikman is one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks. Because for me, at the end of the day, it's about winning. It's not about stats. Troy Aikman sacrificed stats to win. You know, he was known as a gunslinger when he entered the NFL out of UCLA, right? And he played in the toughest division to me, historically. I don't want to say to me, but historically, the toughest division in football for over 10 seasons. The NFC East, or as they call it, the Beast of the East. And more often than not, whoever won that division and overcame the San Francisco 49ers or the Monsters of the Midway Chicago Bears in the playoffs, that team went on to win the Super Bowl and win the whole thing. Whether it was the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Redskins, now known as the Commanders, the New York Giants, whoever prevailed in the NFC East, they won the Super Bowl. Outside of San Francisco 49ers or the Chicago Bears. So I like to give backdrops. Patrick Mahomes, he won his 3rd Super Bowl. And he proved this postseason to be the best quarterback in the NFL. No doubt about it. But the problem is, for the past 10 seasons, they've been saying that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time with 7 Super Bowls. So you ask yourself, how can a quarterback who has 3 Super Bowls has all of a sudden overtaken a quarterback who won 7 Super Bowls? But check this out. Historically, when you look at the performance in these Super Bowls, nobody played at a higher level in the big game throughout any metric of their career, the front end, the back end, whatever you want to call it. Nobody, no other quarterback performed at the level that man in that picture right there did so in 4 Super Bowl appearances. I'm talking about Joe Montana. Right? Joe Montana. And see, this is what's so unfortunate about manipulation. This is what's so unfortunate about changing the rules of the game to generate a more quarterback-friendly league. And it is not necessarily the fault of the quarterbacks in the league today. Because me personally, watching the NFL over the past 2 seasons, officials have allowed defenses to become more aggressive. Because last night's Super Bowl was a tremendous defensive battle on both sides. San Francisco played great defense for the majority of the game. The Kansas City Chiefs played great defense. Check this out. Joe Montana once gave an interview. This was probably about 8 years ago. And he said with today's rule changes that were implemented around 2013, I remember Peyton Manning, who's also one of the all-time great quarterbacks. He won 2 Super Bowl championships. He won like multiple league MVPs, right? His second year with the Denver Broncos, returning back from the neck injury he had during his latter years with the Indianapolis Colts, his final season with the Indianapolis Colts. And his second year with Denver, he threw for 5,500 yards, 55 touchdowns, completion percentage off the charts. And he said after playing the last regular season game, this was the year that he led the Broncos to the Super Bowl versus the Seattle Seahawks, when the Seahawks beat them by the score, I think it was like 43-8. And after that final regular season game, he said, well, if it wasn't for today's rule changes, there's no way I would have generated all those stats. Now, this don't take away from the fact that he's one of the all-time great quarterbacks. I was a Peyton Manning fan, no doubt about it. I remember leading to that Super Bowl versus the Seattle Seahawks, the pundits were like, now mind you, Peyton Manning had 1 Super Bowl victory, and that was against the Chicago Bears in 2007. And I believe the score of that game was something like 29-17. Check this out. They said if Peyton Manning achieves his second Super Bowl victory versus the Seahawks, he will surpass Joe Montana as the greatest quarterback ever. And I'm sitting there like, wait, whoa. How is that even possible? But cooler heads prevailed because the Broncos pretty much got dominated from beginning to end. And those talks ended. So what I'm getting is this. Here's a quarterback in Joe Montana. Like I said, Tom Brady, he engineered great comebacks in the Super Bowl, especially early on, where Adam Vinatieri, his field goals clinched their first 3 Super Bowl victories in franchise history. Mahomes has been a great quarterback, no doubt about it. But he has had periods where he did not play good. He threw an interception last night. He threw multiple interceptions versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady has thrown interceptions in the Super Bowl, whether on the front end or on the back end. He threw a pick 6 versus the New England Patriots. So that means they have been great. Patrick Mahomes is on his way to becoming an all-time great quarterback. We know about Brady. But the problem is neither quarterback has performed at the level that Joe Montana did in the 80s, winning 4 Super Bowls, 1982, 1985, went back-to-back in 89 and 90. Now, mind you, due to serious injuries where he got crushed, the memorable Leonard Marshall hit, the 1990, the NFC Championship game for the 1990 football season between the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Giants. The 49ers was going for a 3-peat. The score of that game was 15-13, and the Giants won by kicking 5 field goals by Matt Barr. And the only touchdown of that game was a touchdown by John Taylor, where he broke a tackle after catching it, and he ran down the side of the field, left side of the field for the touchdown. And the reason I remember that game so much because that was the most physical, hard-hitting, intense playoff football game I ever witnessed in my lifetime. And when I say most physical, I'm talking about from the opening kickoff to the very end. No dirty plays, all-time officiating. The game was determined by the outcome of the field for the full 60 minutes. That game was so physical that the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, didn't even go across that middle on that day. On that day. That was the greatest playoff football game I've seen in my life. And it was a low-scoring game, but the defense was playing at such an elite level. The tackling. Like I said, there was only one broken tackle in that game. That's when John Taylor, the 49ers secondary receiver, broke that tackle going down the sideline. I think he ran for something like a 60-something yard touchdown. And that hit that Montana, he initially broke free as Lawrence Taylor, the great Lawrence Taylor, was trying to chase him down. And Montana was just about to throw it. And he got hit so hard by Leonard Marshall, Montana said he felt like everything hurt. And he lost 2 seasons from that hit alone. Not one season, not like where he couldn't participate in training camp. He missed 2 seasons from essentially one hit. And then he missed previously, he got hit by a giant defensive lineman, Jim Burke, in a divisional game between the Giants, the 86 Giants and the 86 49ers, where the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl that year. He got knocked up. He got knocked up in the air and lost a season due to injuries. See, when Montana got hit, he got hit. And that's why he said in the interview about 8 years ago, he said because of the rule changes, you can get an extra up to 2 seconds before you even have to worry about defensive pressure. Right? Just imagine what that extra 2 seconds do for you. It's like 2 seconds in football would be like an additional 10 seconds. Extra 10 seconds of you get like a head start in a 100-meter race. Well, we'll say 5 seconds. We'll say 5 seconds. You get a 5-second head start. Okay. So what I'm saying is, man, now all of a sudden, Brady's being casted to the wind. And it's happening fast. They won't even let him conduct this Hall of Fame speech. And he's already being cast to the wind. But the problem is, historically, neither Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes measures up to what Joe Montana did in those Super Bowl appearances. First of all, Montana defeated 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks to ever play this game, in Dan Marino in 85, in 84, 85, and then John Elway. Now check this out. When he beat Dan Marino, now mind you, Dan Marino that year was his second year, first quarterback ever to throw for 5,000 yards in a season. Joe Montana outplayed Dan Marino in that Super Bowl, leading 49ers to, I believe it was a 38-16 victory over the Miami Dolphins. The 49ers were 15-1. The Dolphins were 14-2. Joe Montana defeated the 88 NFL MVP Boomer Esiason. A comeback victory, a 92-yard drive. And he threw a game-winning touchdown to John Taylor going across the middle inside the 20-yard line. But the performance that he gave, I believe that was Super Bowl 24. That performance that Joe Montana gave in that Super Bowl, he not only beat John Elway, he beat the number 1 ranked defense that year in the Broncos. He performed surgery on the field. I believe he missed a total of 6 or 7 passes. He led the 49ers to a score of 55-10. Now, he engineered 2 blowouts and 2 comebacks. His first ever Super Bowl, he came back against the Cincinnati Bengals. And their quarterback's name was it Ken O'Brien, who was an excellent quarterback in his own right. Now check this out. In 4 Super Bowl appearances, Montana generated the highest passer rating in Super Bowl history. Like Brady has a passer rating around like 90 in the mid 90s, like, which is solid. No qualms. Like about 95%, something to that effect, right? Mahomes, probably around the same. Because like I said, he's thrown multiple interceptions in his Super Bowl appearances. Joe Montana has a Super Bowl rating in the biggest game in sports of 128.5. He threw for 11 touchdowns, a completion percentage of like 68%. But this is the kicker. This is what puts him up top. First of all, he was undefeated in the Super Bowls. But this is the kicker. In 4 Super Bowls, he never threw one single interception. He faced the number 1 ranked defense in the Denver Broncos, and he performed surgery. There's a highlight NFL Films where Joe Montana yells out, "Black Razor, Black Razor." Man, that sound like a touchdown. That don't sound like no first down. That sound like a touchdown, like one and out. 55-10, and they called off the Dogs in the 4th quarter. Not one single interception in his Super Bowl career. So when the stakes were at its highest, Joe Montana was perfect. And because of the fact that he was perfect, and this is not to take away from Brady. I think Brady, Brady had a tremendous career, no doubt about it. And I'm not getting into, goal talks between him and Mahomes. But they already casting Brady to the wind. But how in the world can you overthrow and unseat a quarterback who was perfect in the Super Bowl? And like I said, he essentially missed 4 seasons due to injury. So imagine what Joe Montana did, especially if you took what he accomplished and translated that in today's game, where it's more pass happy. I don't want to say pass happy, but it's more geared towards passing than ever before. I don't want to say pass happy. That's kind of, I'm not disrespecting, because the NFL is very hard to play. So I'm not downplaying what these quarterbacks are doing. I'm not downplaying that. I think Josh Allen, man, I think he's probably the toughest quarterback out there, because he takes punishment, running with the football and whatnot. But in the biggest game, this man not only was undefeated, not only did he beat 2 of the top 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he didn't throw one interception. Now, unless somebody duplicates that, because if you look at Brady, okay, he won 3 Super Bowls, right? His first 3 Super Bowls. But Brady was more of a game manager then. Brady was more of a game manager, which is nothing wrong with it, because if you're a young quarterback, your first Super Bowl, you're probably not going to throw for a whole bunch of yards. So I get that. And I forgot to mention this about Joe Montana. To get to his first Super Bowl, he had to engineer a comeback against the mighty Dallas Cowboys in one of the greatest NFC championship games of all time. He led the 49ers in a comeback to defeat the Cowboys, prime Dallas Cowboys with Tom Landry at the helm as the head coach. And they had all that talent back then. Danny White was the quarterback, Drew Pearson, Tony Hill's the wide receivers, Tony Dorsett as the running back, Robert Newhouse the fullback, and then the tremendous defense they had. Earl, Too Tall Jones, Danny White, and them boys, and Preston Pearson and whatnot. So what I'm saying is, man, it's like, and see, during that era of football, it was more balanced on offense because for the past couple of Super Bowls, the coach of the 49ers now, Kyle Shanahan, when he should be running the ball, he don't run the ball. And that's how his teams get in trouble and lose. Every Super Bowl Kyle Shanahan has lost, he's had the lead going to the second half. And normally you don't see that in Super Bowls. Like what you do in the first half, it carries over to the second half. But he refused to run the ball. Well, back then, like during the 80s or whatnot, in the 90s, there was a great balance between what the quarterback was out there doing and putting the emphasis on running the football. That's why Dallas was so great in the 90s, because they fed their appeal to Emmitt Smith down the stretch of them big games, them Super Bowls, playoff games, just big division games. And 49ers had a great running back in Roger Craig, But when you get down to it, man, if a quarterback is perfect and has the highest rating, and think about this, he has the highest rating in the history of the biggest game in sports history. 11 touchdowns, 2 comebacks, 2 blowouts, no interceptions. That's perfection. And it's not a quarterback that can beat that. So therefore, when I look at it, when you look at it from that context, considering the years he missed due to injury, and the fact that he cranked out them 4 Super Bowls like that, in that era where the 49ers was in a tough division with the LA Rams and with Los Angeles Rams, he had to face that great defense in the New Orleans Saints, led by head coach Jim Mora, way before Jim Mora was known for saying, playoffs, I just hope we can win another game. We can win another game. That was way before that. You know what I'm saying? The godfather of coaching rants is Jim Mora. But what I'm saying is, then the NFC East, you had all-time great defenses. The New York Giants, Lawrence Taylor, led by Lawrence Taylor, Carl Banks, Leonard Marshall, you know what I'm saying? What's that linebacker? Gary Reasons. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, they had the best defensive front in the league. Reggie Wright, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, and whatnot. Washington Redskins, the Commanders, they had a great defense during the 80s. Charles Mann, Wilbur Marshall, Matt Millen, you know what I'm saying? Kurt Cavea, you know what I'm saying? And then the Monsters of the Midway, Chicago Bears. The Minnesota Vikings had a great defense, you know what I'm saying, during the late 80s. So what I'm trying to say is, man, for him to crank out them Super Bowls like that during that era and be perfect, going up against number 1 ranked defense, think about that. You ain't supposed to be able to do that. A number 1 ranked defense, and you shred them up for 55 points in the biggest game in the world. And when a back-to-back. And it took a Leonard Marshall hit, a hit that knocked him out for 2 years, to keep the 49ers from three-peating. You know what I mean? Now, the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl that year, beating the Buffalo Bills in one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time, 2019. So, in closing, the history speaks for itself. And the history, when it stands on its own, it kind of shows you who's who, man. And when you watch Joe Montana out there balling, you never felt he was going to lose, man. By the time he beat Marino, anytime he got in the Super Bowl, man, they called him Joe Cool for a reason. Right? The accuracy that he had. You know what I'm saying? In an era where you had about a second and a half less of reaction time before you have to worry about someone crushing you. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to throw that out there, man. You know, since the Super Bowl just occurred and the football season is over, you can't be perfection, man. Unless you gonna match what he did and beyond. When you start talking about the greatest quarterback in the history of this game. Now, these other the Brady's and the Mahomes gonna have way more passing yards than Joe Montana. But like I said, the league was different then because the running game was emphasized more. And and the way the quarterbacks ran their offense was different, man. Yeah, they just weren't throwing for the sake of throwing. That's what I'm trying to say. When they threw the football, it was with purpose. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that we don't see that now, but I'm just saying it was more of a balanced attack on offense then, you know. But at the end of the day, I look at that and I say, wow, he was you can't be perfection. You can't do it. You can't do it. So I just want to throw that out there, man. Another Super Bowl went down in history, but the best of them all, 128.5 passer rating, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 68% completion percentage. That's Joe Montana in the big game. So I just wanted to drop that real quick. And until next time, this is JB for BTB Behind the Bench.